Hey guys, Veebat here with another V Plays, and while you're probably watching this on July 5th, I actually filmed this July 4th, which is why we're taking out one of my aircraft that has the most American flag paint you can possibly put on here, celebrating the Independence Day of my nation. So, hope you guys enjoy this video because the F7U is an underloved aircraft, and while it feels like a bit of a flop, I still think that it's a capable airframe. It's just that it's not as good as a lot of the other aircraft that are out there, including the F-84F, which is going to be the other multi-role that the Americans offer at Tier 10, which has a much better turn capability. And even though it only has 650 cals, they're still robust enough. Now, what this aircraft brings to the table is the ability to carry 4 500-pound bombs that get a 120-second reload, which is a good reload speed. That is right where you want it to be on the shorter end for the multi-role. It's not the best, but it's short. You also get 4 20mm cannons, which are the same 20mm cannons that you see on the Pirate, and they're also the same 20mm cannons that you'll see on the F2H and the XF90. It's just that the XF90 gets 6 of these. So these cannons, you have a really high rate of fire, but if you're not careful, they'll overheat. And what I've found is that once you find the sweet spot, you do a lot better with these. I've actually gone with Marksman 2 on this. I had a video a while back. I think the video must have been like 40 minutes long because I tried flying it, it didn't do so well, and then it was a montage of me getting the experience to be able to convert the pilot to having Marksman 2, and it ended up changing the way that the aircraft played. And that's what I ended up going back to on this airframe once I just unlocked another skill point, because I actually moved the pilot, if you can believe it. The aircraft has a very impressive acceleration curve. Now, I may be a little bit delusional here, but I have a theory that even though you can't see the acceleration curve, I think that your rate of climb is going to be indicative of your acceleration. So this has a 535 foot per second climb rate with the current configuration, which allows you to be able to, one, climb very quickly, but also two, I know that the aircraft speeds up really quick. We're down to what, 200 miles an hour, and now we're already up to 350 just in a very short dive, and I don't even have polished skin on this aircraft. Bombs are back up, so if we needed to flip a zone we could, but there's not much going on here. The aircraft doesn't have the best maneuverability, but you also have to bear in mind that at this tier there aren't too many maneuverable platforms out there. Sure, there's a Yak 30, but with the acceleration and top end speed of this thing, I should be able to get away from them. And with what I have set up on this aircraft, I'm actually going to be competitive with the Hawker Hunter, which a lot of people note is going to be the best multi-role at tier 10. I'm sure there's some room for debate there, but generally speaking, having 4 Aidens on a multi-role is a pretty nasty situation. So we do have some good damage output here, but it's not enough to be able to take out these ground attackers as quickly as I would like, so we're opting for these up and over turns in order to get these guns back on target, and you can see how quickly the cannons start to overheat here. I'm really not sure what I want to do when or if I ever specialize this platform, because there is a spot for a piece of equipment for the forward firing armament, and I'm interested to see what works best, so that might be some testing in the future. We're already up to 543, and the thing is just coasting along just fine. It's able to maintain these high speeds very effectively. We do have an enemy player in a specialized, what is that, the 1102B? I believe it is. Yep. So we have to try and focus this guy down to the best of our ability, and it's still taken a lot to be able to take him out. I'm not sure what happened there, if he intentionally crashed or if we took out a control surface, but he ended up getting knocked out. And now I'm calling for some help, but because I bled off so much of my speed going after the ground attacker, I really opened myself up to that F-84F, which again I mentioned being a very maneuverable platform, and since it is also a multi-role, it sports a pretty impressive top-end speed and acceleration characteristics as well. It's weird that this aircraft's biggest problem is going to be other multi-roles in a lot of the time. So we yet again see the ground attacker coming in, and multi-roles do have a job or a niche to fill where they should be operating as a defensive aircraft against some of these heavier ground attackers and bomber aircraft, because they have the stronger guns, they have the robust hit point pools to be able to take some of the tail gunner fire, and they have the speed to be able to get to those important parts of the map. So when you go and flip a zone, you don't immediately leave, you stick around and defend against the enemy a little bit and clear out what's left in the zone. Or in this particular instance, I'm trying to focus down the enemy ground attacker player because he is going to be one of the most dangerous threats for us. Trying to find those sweet spots with the gun here, and we managed to knock him out, although I think you'll all note that it took a lot of effort to get there. Unfortunately, we haven't had too much opportunity to drop these bombs, but it was very effective early on in the battle. If we were just running around the periphery, flipping zones, I think that would have worked out just fine, especially if the enemy player wasn't in a ground attacker, but maybe in a turn fighter in the middle. This aircraft would be best suited to never go to the middle and just stay on those outside edges, continually flipping those garrisons. We're able to stick on this F-84D fairly effectively here, but it looks like I do have a multitude of other aircraft in the zone I should be paying attention to as well. Just picked up grade 3 multi-role. I'll be the first to admit that I'm not flying this aircraft as well as I have in other instances, but I just got into it and wanted to do a nice match for you guys and highlight the platform. Now, historically, this aircraft was actually called the Cutlass. Ooh, we just got knocked out by that F-94D. Vengeance for his brethren, I guess. But they ended up calling it the Cutlass because the aircraft had some issues with the engines that they initially used on it. It was one of the first production aircraft the Americans used that had afterburners, but it ran into a bunch of issues for stability as well as, well, again, the engine performance, and then it created weird stall characteristics. So it was known for killing more of its own pilots than it was the enemy, and even if statistically that was accurate, although not really in a time of conflict, those type of monikers that are given to an aircraft, any aircraft, end up sticking, so anybody else who flies it is going to be thinking the same thing as well, which is never a good situation for a unit to be in, thinking that they're flying a death trap. It does have some really neat features on it. The fact that this is a flying wing, it's a delta wing, and then it also has the air brakes, it has leading edge slats, it has what's called, like, I think people call these flaperons, or no, it was, I've heard flaperons. The ailerons operate as elevators, so essentially, like, when you pull up, both ailerons tilt up in order to make the aircraft go up, or inverse in order for you to dive. So they also operate as the ailerons. So it's a neat kind of control scheme in order to minimize a lot of excessive control surfaces, but still getting the same type of effect. All right, let's take a little bit more in-depth look at the aircraft back at the hangar. All right, not too bad. Spreading a little bit of freedom with the mostly unliked F7U. There is very few people who truly enjoy this aircraft, but it definitely did its role as best it could and ended up netting us a pretty decent amount of experience for the pilot, and a lot of that can be attributed to converting crew experience as well as getting a ×3 for this weekend event. I can't say that I don't enjoy this aircraft. I have a lot of other aircraft I prefer besides this one, but 4 500-pound bombs are pretty darn good, and with 120-second reload, you're a very viable zone flipper for coming in, dropping those munitions, and capturing garrisons and the like. This aircraft works out just fine. The guns, maybe it's just me, these 20s, they just feel like they don't have enough oomph, but they still do a pretty good job. Don't be fooled by the altitude limitations because the max altitude of this aircraft is close to 13,000 feet, which means that you'll be able to get up above that 6,000 foot barrier fairly easily. And you can see here with a rate of climb of 535 feet per second, that is a really good acceleration curve, and that's what this aircraft is really good for, is being able to get up to those good speeds and kind of tip that nose up and get itself out of trouble, or tip its nose down in some cases, just to be able to get a little bit more speed out of it. I would love to see what we could do with this thing specialized. I think we might be able to bring it into its own, but it's unfortunate that it's an aircraft that you really have to consider pushing for specialist in it because it almost needs it, which isn't that much of an endorsement if I do say so myself. If I did specialize in this, I'm pretty sure I would end up putting on the, what is it, polished skin? Yeah, in order to give my aircraft a little bit more speed in the dives, that way when I get into trouble I can dip the nose and get out. But then I would add the lightweight power unit in order for us to be able to get some of that maneuverability back. For the forward firing weapon system, I'm kind of torn. I'm not sure if I would go for the reinforced bolt carrier, which allows you to be able to get more burst length, because you saw that we were overheating pretty quickly there, or if I should opt for going for the long barrels. I feel like it already has really good range, so really it's probably going to be the limitation of not being able to hammer down on the trigger that much. But with that said, CAS operated action has the ability to roll for a reduced cooldown rate, or a increased cooldown rate, which allows the guns to cool down faster. That's what I was trying to say, but that makes those also a viable option for guns that tend to overheat, believe it or not, so it's a little bit contrary to what the description reads. And on top of that, we'll be able to put the consumable in to make these bombs even more potent, which is going to be an awesome combination for this bird, because it really does like to be the bomber plane, or the multi-role with a lot more oomph to it. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this July 4th edition of my reviews, bearing in mind that, of course, I'm filming this towards the end of July 4th, but it's going to air on July 5th. So for my American audience, happy Independence Day. And for everybody else, I hope you still enjoyed being able to highlight the F7U Cutlass. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoy the video, and as always, I'll catch you on the next one.